Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be talking, I'm not going to be talking about a subject. I have come on here to do a question and answers because I haven't answered any questions on here for a while. So I thought I would come on and do that. So if you have any specific questions relating to your OCD you would like me to answer, please post them in the comments below and I will cover those now. On anything in relation to OCD. I'm not going to be leaving it as long as I have on the question and answers recently, but I had to cover those subjects because I've been doing question and answers a lot and everyone was saying, Rob, I want you to do subjects more on particular things. So I decided to cover those topics and now I'm going back to doing the questions. Will you be doing a seminar call on schizophrenia? Absolutely. We will be doing these webinars on various topics of OCD, ones that often don't get covered, as well as the more popular ones. We've done ROCD, we've done POCD, we've done those twice. We've done harm OCD, false memory real event OCD, and there is next Thursday a harm real event false memory OCD webinar on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. UK time. If you want to come to that, please DM me on here or email info@ocdrecovery.com. And that will be the next webinar. But we will be covering schizophrenia. It's a very popular topic. I will definitely get that covered. Right. Let's have a look at some of these questions. What is something good to tell your OCD when it is taking myself over? You don't need these we have these affirmations. People love those online. And most people who talk about affirmations do not understand how affirmations do not, when they're beneficial and when they're not, a lot of the time, right? You see them so broadly mentioned in self-help books. Tell yourself in the mirror that you're a this, you're a that every day. It's going to be useless for OCD, useless. For OCD, the person needs to believe it. They can't just tell themselves. You can't fib yourself into recovery. So a good thing to do is just to sort of take it one day at a time, work through things, work on your acceptance and getting under your fears, and that's the plan. And think, long term, you not that long, but I'm saying not instantly in a day or so. You will get better and you will recover. But you don't need to tell yourself. People often say, Rob, I get messages saying this. Rob, can you please tell me some tips or tricks that I can say to myself very quickly every day that sorts out my OCD? It doesn't work like that. You can't just tell yourself some kind of tips and tricks that gets you better. You can't just do that. You can't fib yourself, kid yourself into recovery. It doesn't work like that. Responsibility OCD is where OCD is really latched to that sort of heightened sense of responsibility. It loves to get in on choice. Specifically, have I made the right decision? Have I made the wrong decision? If I make the wrong decision, it'll be terrible. Where we're exaggerating how scary the wrong decision would be, and that's what's fueling it. It hijacks that. Just sort of like heightened, exaggerated sense of responsibility. Where false memory, real event, or in our OCD, am I making the right decision? Should I let them know? Should I end this relationship? Should I carry it on? All this kind of stuff is going on. So it's a heightened sense of responsibility, but we are exaggerating the risk, the scenario, the thing that we fear. That's far raised much higher than it actually is in reality. We've got that exaggerated, so we need to bring that down where we're catastrophizing that. Then we won't feel so pulled back and forth by the OCD. Can OCD make you angry? Yes, your nerves are startled and you're sensitized from anxiety and being stressed a lot. You're going to get angry very easily. I used to get a lot of anger during my OCD when I was really stuck and I couldn't find a way out and it was just telling me you're a rotten, terrible individual all the time. I used to get really, really angry. So learning to get under my musts, because the musts were what were fueling the anger. I must not be treated like this. This must not be happening. Instead, until they became preferences, is what really reduced it and let it and brought the heat down. But the heat was jacked up because I was feeling that everything was awful and had no idea any tools for it. So yeah, once you understand that, then the anxiety comes down, you become more calm, and then you're less angry. But then the anger was being stimulated by these rigid black and white beliefs that I had. Please talk about porn topic. Porn plays a big role often in the sexual harm related OCD. What was the age of the person of the clip I clicked on? Were they consenting? Were they not? If so, we feel guilty forever. And OCD playing around with that's one. And anxiety can very easily lead to porn addiction because the person is looking for relief, sensation, feeling of relief. So the brain is looking for a way out. So if that's done more and more, that can easily become addictive, especially as if they're not having relationships or they're in quarantine and so on. And it's very easily that can lead to that if the person is using that as the main form of sort of sexual behavior that they're engaging in. And obviously porn is made to be made addictive and lead to more and more sort of extreme, sort of more stimulating material, which obviously becomes more extreme, more degrading and so on to get that release. So you need to watch that. But in relation to harm OCD and POCD and sexual harm OCD, it's all relating to guilt and feeling like a so-called bad person and having done something or just clicked or an urge and all this kind of stuff, which we cover in detail in those webinars on the POCD, guilt and sexual harm content topics when we do those. So we do cover that in quite a lot of detail. Is feeling something like you don't belong here, where you are, your home, your friends and your environment, part of OCD? Well, it can be. OCD can make you feel anything, like you don't belong, you feel separate, you feel alone, you feel freak, you feel different, you feel weird. So it can look to get in any way. But there could be other components there that aren't OCD. We'd have to look at that situation. How do I join the seminar? Just either DMing on this account or going to the email that I just mentioned of info@ocdrecovery.com. Core of health OCD is usually fear of death. Or an illness that would impair your quality of life, so much so that you really don't want that and terrified of that happening because you believe that will be so debilitating to your life. You will not be able to enjoy yourself, stand it, and it will be unbearable. Accept it as if it were true. We're not saying acceptance isn't agreement. That's the common mistake made. Acceptance is accepting the human being as a fallible, mistake-making human being that has value just for being alive and human. That doesn't mean that they are acknowledging that something is true, because OCD is going to come up with a million things. So if we were acceptance was agreement, we'd be going to doctors to have a cancer scan on some particular organ. We'd be confessing to a crime. We'd be breaking up with our partner all in the same hour. So OCD is going to do that. So acceptance certainly is not agreement. How to stop automatic mental compulsions and rumination. Automatic they are in the sense that because the fear is high, they play out automatically. They come down, there's often us involved in it to a certain degree, but the rest of it tends to come down as we become less scared of the fear. Then the automatic stops playing so hard. So we as we breathe, fear comes down, that automatic cycle stops feeling like it's sort of compelled in us going around, automatic, that then comes down. But we need to bring the fear down first for those to fade out. I get a pain in my chest and my heart rate increases almost immediately when I'm feeling anxious. What can I do in these moments? Well, the reason you're getting this pain in your chest and your heart rate increasing almost immediately when you're feeling anxious is because your nervous system's fired up, anxiety is pumping through that, so that's why you get that. But there is most likely a fear of that, and you're trying to eliminate that. So you've got to allow that to be present, not try and get rid of that, allow it to play out, allow it to feel that sensation, and allow it to do its worst. Be at peace with that, which takes a little bit of time, but that's how you get under it. Haven't gone outside in 6 months due to COVID. OCD, how do I start? Build up gradually. Facing fears, building up bit by bit. And you'll get out there, taking the risk, living like other humans do as best you can, going with the uncertainty, going out to live life as best as you can, mimicking what other humans are doing, because we have to live with risk. We can't live so safe that we don't cause any harm to anyone, because that's not living. Humans do cause some amount of harm or do cause some amount of risk, and we have to get used to that, because that's part of being a human. How can I expose myself to schizophrenia or OCD? There's many ways. You can watch documentaries on schizophrenia, interviews with people with schizophrenia, TED Talks by people who have got schizophrenia. So many different areas that you can get into to expose yourself to the schizophrenia fear. Can you give an example of making peace with a worst case scenario? Yes, if you had HIV fear, for example, watching documentaries on HIV, seeing that actually people live long lives with HIV and can still fulfill most of their goals. So when you actually realize that and see that there's actually nothing there to be terrified of, you won't be terrified. But if you've got irrational beliefs like, my life will be over, it'll be the end of the world, I can't stand it in there, well, until those broken down, you might feel at that point like you can't stand it, and you will feel chronic anxiety. So until we break down those irrational beliefs that aren't true and aren't valid to the situation, not real, then we start and adopt the rational alternative, then we do get a more peaceful felt sensation in ourselves, which continues instead of the chronic anxiety sensation that we know all too well. I don't answer every single question that comes on here. I answer a few of them because obviously loads of them come up. I go through them and randomly pick them. Not avoiding any, but ones that we can answer without too long an answer that goes off topic, often because there's questions that are coming up on here. It's sort of like, what is OCD recovery in general, which is a very broad topic, or things relating specifically to a person that we need background information for. Homosexual OCD we'll be covering we did it the other day actually, in the POCD call, but there's some great videos on that. Oliver Vessi's one on our YouTube channel on HOCD, and POCD is a great one to watch if you're suffering from HOCD. Please watch that. ROCD revolving around old arguments. I would really suggest watching the ROCD playlist on the YouTube channel, because we cover quite a lot of that there. Old arguments, it's always going to feel like there's something in the past or something now that you must listen to, you must not ignore. It's a warning, like in all OCD. There's a warning sign, you must not ignore it. It must be paid attention to. That's what it's always calling you to do, a call to action, fight or flight. You need to leave it there and get comfortable with it, because that's the very nature of it. That is what the cycle is fueled by. I want everything super clean, and if not, I get furious. Well, that's about tolerating that we don't need things super clean. I mean, it's not healthy to live in absolutely clean environments. We want some elements of dirt, but what we've got a reaction here, in this instance, what we're talking about here, where you've got a reaction where it's an overreaction, where it's exaggerated to the feeling of dirt or not feeling right or any of that. And so it's bringing that down, getting comfortable with whatever that is you're experiencing. We know that other humans are. People live in a village where it's very dirty and not hygienic and not even got clean water, and they're not chronically anxious. So we know that it is our reaction to something there that's causing the problem. It's our sensations, it's the fear of the sensation, and then we've believed that sensation, then we're convinced that sensation is real and a threat that needs to be taken and needs immediate attention when it actually doesn't. Breathing is a sensation. I used to get lots of shortness of breath. It used to actually get me in things like where it's to do with public presentations. What if I can't catch my breath? People often, when they get anxious, they stop, the breathing goes off when they're doing public speaking, and that's about learning to accept that maybe you muck up, maybe you can't breathe, maybe even you die, right? I used to often think I had shortness of breath and would lead to asthma attack or something like that, so I would be constantly aware of that and finding it hard to exhale. Okay, I'm breathing in, but not exhale, then over-inhaling, and then all kinds of things. So we've got to get used to accepting that, hey, we may experience some breathing difficulties because of anxiety, and let it do its worst. And the biggest change in my OCD recovery journey was when I really got to a point where I was like, excuse my language here, but it's very key, where I really thought, fuck it. I thought anything's better than this. So do you know what? Even if I drop down dead right now, so what? I've had enough of this. I ain't letting anything hold me back. I'm not letting anything hold me back, any sensation, feeling, or thought, whatever it is. And so I said, do its worst. Allow it to do anything at all. And that was the key changing part for me in the journey. Key, vital, massive change. Going to doctors endlessly, going to the doctors constantly every week, till I was at a point, screw it. You know what? Let me have a heart attack. Let me drop down dead. Really in that position. And that's key. That's key part of the journey, in whichever theme you're suffering from. Can you recover from OCD on your own? Absolutely you can. With reading the right books, doing the work, disputing irrational beliefs, practice, and so on. But I'm going to highlight, it's not easy. It's very difficult on your own. This site and all the free resources that I provide help to allow you to do that as best you can, but it does help a lot more to have somebody help you who's got a great knowledge of OCD and a good experience with it, because they can see it from other angles and see where you're stuck and give you that insight. Often when we're on our own, it's tricky. So I usually say to people, absolutely you can recover on your own, but it's a great assistance to have someone helping you. POCD, please watch the YouTube channel and the POCD playlist. There's loads of content there for that theme. Great to hear that there, Chris, about how well you're doing. Thanks for that. It's good to always hear those stories. It's always great to hear all the people that are benefiting from these accounts that I run and seeing how it's changing their lives, because that's what it's all about. How to deal with POCD false memories. Every day when I get over one, a new one comes in its place. Yeah, I really think the best thing to do is watch those POCD videos because they do go into great detail. The Oliver's one on POCD and chronic guilt does that specifically. Unconditional self-acceptance is vital here for getting under this one. As well as there's usually a large fear component that's sort of propelling along the cycle, because you're scared of what if you stay stuck forever, what if you can't get over this one, and that's always plays a part. But unconditional self-acceptance was a vital thing for me here in relation to any of these false memory, real event type harm, sexual harm themed thoughts. And so I think it's very important that we get an understanding of that from the reading of Albert Ellis, especially in the book both of those, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable and The Myth of Self-Esteem. And in The Myth of Self-Esteem, specifically chapter 4 and the last couple of chapters really give great detail of breaking down between good and bad, idea of humans being good and bad, which is a load of nonsense, and how unconditional self-acceptance plays a part in our emotional disturbance. So definitely check those out. You don't avoid triggers, you face triggers. You can't run from OCD, you have to face it. Best POCD exposure. People often chase exposures like they're a golden ticket to recovery. I deal with groinal response, which is extremely hard to deal with. Exposures have to be set up to the individuals. You can't just sort of pick them up out of the blue. All they are is facing fears, so they depend differently. But in relation to groinal responses, you'll see that in the YouTube channels in the POCD playlist. But groinal response is just sensation in a fired up nervous system. They have no relevancy to anything that we're scared of or any trigger. It's of no indication of sexual desire. However, with them, people feel compelled that they've committed a bad act or done something wrong. So that's where unconditional self-acceptance gets in, because often they can't create that internal distance in between the fear and the anxiety cycle they're experiencing, because they're utterly convinced that this occasion is different, this occasion is real, this occasion warrants chronic anxiety, whereas no situation ever warrants chronic anxiety and chronic guilt. We just believe it does because we've got so used to that. And we believe that through what we've learned since a kid in this conditional self-acceptance ideas, which is how society operates and believes, but doesn't make rational scientific sense. I will be planning videos on magical thinking, as I was describing about recovery from magical thinking myself in the last video that I made today, where I was saying I've got an eye infection in this eye, and I was saying, well, I hope I go blind in it, I hope I have a heart attack, I hope my mum has a heart attack and dies, all these kinds of things, which would be very triggering for somebody with magical thinking. But obviously I don't suffer from OCD anymore, and these are things that I did in the past to get over magical thinking. So yeah, I could say I hope that plane crashes and kills everyone or whatever, wouldn't make any difference. Or swearing and say horrible things about anyone, loved one, makes no difference, because I don't believe it. I can see that it is just words coming out of my mouth, sounds that I've connected the dots to lead to whatever feared scenario I was scared of. Existential OCD will be covering in a webinar coming up soon, but there's a lot of content on the YouTube channel on existential, especially related to solipsism, the sort of brain in a vat idea that's often a common fear for people. Thank you, Hayley, for your comments there about OCD, what this account was all about. And please join our Facebook group. It's a very large resource with loads of great moderators and great content on all of this. So yeah, you'll find everything that you need for OCD in there. Just reading these questions. Tomorrow's my sister's wedding and schizo OCD is ramped up a million. Yeah, you've got to bring it for the ride. For all holidays, events, things we want to really have a good time, we say, I must have a good time at this thing. It's going to turn up the heat because it knows that you want rid. So you need to bring it along for the ride. Exposures are just facing fears, they're just facing fears, seeing things for what they are in reality. You can invent them yourselves, just start gradually, build them up. If you're scared of spiders, for example, you don't have to read 1,000 books on how to get over a fear of spiders. You want to have an understanding of why you are scared, but you can do a lot of the stuff yourself. For example, when I wanted to target my own arachnophobia, I started by looking at images of spiders online, watching videos of spiders moving, seeing that I didn't like the crawling sensation, watching them crawling. Then obviously I needed to break down some of the beliefs I had, fear of them running all over me, control, like loss of control, that stuff, but the exposures I could build. So with some guidance, you can build them yourself and do them yourself, and that's what community with OCD is all about, giving each other ideas of ways that they can build up, things that they can think of watching, or documentaries and so on. And that's really important, because a lot of the work we have to do ourselves, and we need to come at it and think about it and adapt it to our own journey. So yes, you can do that. You just need to think of what things you're scared of and gradual ways to build that up bit by bit. It's a natural part of life. Things you're scared of, moving towards them carefully within safe parameters, and doing that, and you can get over these fears. And its aim is to become less scared of things in life, so that we become more fearless, but still have concern, but not chronic anxiety. Reading and learning from Albert Ellis and Rob has completely changed my life. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Aiden. Good to hear that. It's certainly Ellis's work is a real game changer. The book that I just said was called How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything, I Mean Anything. And then the second book was The Myth of Self-Esteem, both by Albert Ellis. Oh my God, how can you say those things so easily in relation to those magical exposures? Because I have, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. Recovery takes a long time. It's like if you went to maybe a tennis coach and you've never played tennis. They're obviously, you think, well, how can they hit the ball like that? Because it's a practice thing. I have no fear of saying anything, and I use that as a demonstration, not to be crude, but just to demonstrate it. As I said in the last video today, where I was showing, look, there's nothing, words have no reference to me. I could say, again, sorry to be rude, but I need to use it for demonstration exercise. But if I said, fuck my mum, I hate my fucking mum, I hope she dies of a heart attack, I hope she dies in pain, it doesn't bother me. I can see those are just words. I can see that they have no relevance to anything in life. I can see that they do not cause anything. They do not make me a bad person for saying them, because I understand it and I can see that. And then it doesn't grip and it doesn't lock on. Why do we think these things? Because we're humans and we just think of random things. The brain is a computer. It just comes up with anything. It's got no reference to ourselves. And by saying it out loud, I'm demonstrating that it's not scary. It's not terrifying like we imagine it to be. Fear of fear cycle. We will cover this in a specific webinar, just relation to fear of fear. But fear of fear is specifically just fear of sensations. And the best, and seeing that, why is it so scary to feel these sensations? We have these beliefs about it, irrational beliefs that fuel that cycle. And we have to look at those. And it's about really just getting comfortable with sensations. And great books for that in the reading list are Claire Week's Self-Help for Your Nerves and Paul David's At Last a Life book, which really gives great insight into this fear of fear cycle. And Matteo, you should read those again, because you've read those a year ago or so, and there will be good ones to touch over that again. But I think I'm a bad person for thinking them. That is where the book Myth of Self-Esteem by Albert Ellis is really going to help you with that. So it breaks down the idea that there's no such thing as bad people. There's only humans that do acts that are seen as good or bad. And it really breaks that down to demonstrate that. So that's a vital book for you, so you can see how we can accept humans as they are, as fallible, living, breathing humans that can make mistakes, fallible beings, and they're not sort of rigidly good or rigidly bad. And they break down all the points of why that isn't true, so that you can really see and understand exactly why that's the case, so that you can embody that. And then then you stop beating yourself up with this sort of I'm bad, I'm terrible, which OCD loves to do. It loves to play this sort of judge and executioner position. Guys, I will see you on the next Instagram Live. I'll be back on doing another Q&A soon, so I will cover that. And I will speak to you on the next Instagram Live. All right, guys, take it easy. See you later.